As America's leaders consider new COVID restrictions in the face of the Delta variant, several European nations are offering a window into the political turmoil caused by overbearing government. We'll show you some of the images from a weekend of demonstrations against vaccine mandates in Paris and Berlin. Later on in the show, Republican candidate for New York City Mayor Curtis Sliwa joins us to lay out his plan to clean up the Big Apple. Friends, it's time for Hold the Line. Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. The Fauci is not finished with you. You can tell him to go Fauci himself, but he is still out there making demands of all of us. And one of the ways that he frames the issue these days, remember, we're at a place of 1 or 2 deaths a day from COVID in cities with over 1 million residents in this country, like New York and Los Angeles. A handful of people dying a week. Less than that, actually, in Washington, D.C., but they're still going back with mandates. What exactly is going on here? Well, Dr. Fauci wants you to know that it is a violation of other people's rights for you not to have to wear a mask because, you see, you as a human being are actually just a vector of disease and germs.
I want to ask you about the reaction we've seen from prominent Republican governors. We've seen Florida Republican Governor DeSantis, Republican Governor Abbott of Texas, Governor Ducey in Arizona push back strongly against the notion of mask requirements.
I disagree with them. I respectfully disagree with them. The fact is, there are things that are individual responsibilities that one has, and there are things that have to do with you individually, which also impact others. A person's individual decision to not wear a mask not only impacts them, because if they get infected, even though they say it's my decision, if I get infected, I'll worry about that. But the fact is, if you get infected, even if you are without symptoms, you very well may infect another person who may be vulnerable, who may get seriously ill. So in essence, you are encroaching on their individual rights because you're making them vulnerable.
Nowhere else do we do this, and have we done this in society, where we make rules based upon the completely uncertain prospect of an individual perhaps having a communicable disease that they expel through breathing, and therefore we all have to take constant precautions. Remember, 99% of the people that are doing this at any given time, over that number actually, don't have COVID. And so we're all just, you're making tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people go through what is effectively just theatrics because you think you're going to be able to stop a disease in its tracks, a virus, but that's actually not what ends up happening. And this is also the kind of logic that led to things like lockdowns in the first place, which, does anyone think they worked well? Look at the numbers right now. Look at how many people have been infected with COVID over the last 18 months. Did we really think that we had a successful strategy with lockdowns? The good news is that at least for now, and we know this can always change and they will move the goalposts once again, but at least for now, Fauci is saying no more lockdowns.
I don't think we're going to see lockdowns. I think we have enough of the percentage of people in the country, not enough to crush the outbreak, but I believe enough to not allow us to get into the situation we were in last winter. But things are going to get worse. If you look at the acceleration of the number of cases, the 7-day average has gone up substantially. You know, what we really need to do, John, we say it over and over again, and it's the truth. We have 100 million people in this country who are eligible to be vaccinated, who are not getting vaccinated.
So we probably won't have lockdowns, but you can't trust him because it's Fauci, and let's be honest, this guy lies all the time. But also, you better get vaccinated or else. Or else what? Probably there'll be some form of lockdown in the winter, but they won't call it that. They'll call it something else. In fact, what you see going on now is that whereas the politicians in the past, because of all the panic that was spreading, mostly from media fear-mongering, but obviously there's been periods of time here where politicians believed that they were doing the right thing and perhaps even just enlarging their power and using this as a political weapon. So they took the credit, if you will, now it looks like blame, for lockdowns and mask mandate policies. But that's changing a bit. So now what they want is private sector entities to step up and do what the public sector, what the government officials, elected officials, no longer want to do. And this you see with Governor Cuomo of New York specifically, who's asking private businesses to make sure there are vaccine-only admissions in place.
Private businesses, I am asking them and suggesting to them, go to vaccine-only admission. Go to vaccine-only admission. We did this, Radio City Music Hall, months ago. Reopened, vaccine-only. Sold out all the shows. Sports arenas, they went up to about 90% vaccine-only. Private businesses, bars, restaurants, go to a vaccine-only admission.
Vaccine-only admission. This is the governor saying you go to that vaccine-only admission, so there is some sense of the coercive power of the state behind all this. Right now it's a suggestion, but it's kind of like nice business you have. It'd be a shame if some health authority came over and decided to shut you down because you're not putting in place the mandate that we said you probably should, but we're not going to make you, but then we're going to make you. Because that's how they do this. It's also how it goes in other countries. You should probably take a moment to look at what happened in Paris over the weekend, where there were extremely troubling riots going on. Troubling insofar as they've deployed men in masks and full riot gear to bludgeon Parisians out in the street for the crime of not wanting to have vaccine mandates. They actually attack people, they arrest them, they throw things at them. You know, free speech, but not so much, not in France. What about in Germany? Well, here there are riots in Berlin, you see as well. There's some really nasty moments where you had senior citizens being hit with billy clubs. Why? Because they don't want lockdowns and mandates and masks and all of this madness. Europe, believe it or not, there are countries in Europe where there seems to be a healthier movement for the defense of freedom in the face of these lockdowns than what we've even had in this country. And don't even get me started on Australia, where they have in Sydney the military deployed to help enforce lockdowns. Yeah, scary stuff, folks. Here is where we, dare I say, hold the line against the madness. All right, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser was busted for defying her own mask mandate during a wedding this past weekend. Coming up here in just a moment, the First TV's Tiana Lowe is going to join us to discuss the story she broke. But right now, I want to tell you about my friends at Done For You Real Estate. Have you ever wanted to invest in real estate, but you didn't have the time to do it on your own, and you didn't want to make rookie mistakes? I felt exactly the same way as you until about a year ago. I've always loved the idea of real estate investment, but I didn't want to get involved in something without some guidance, right? Didn't want to make rookie mistakes. That's when I met my friends at Done For You Real Estate. They took all the guesswork out of it for me. They found me an awesome property. They rented it out for me right away. They managed the tenant for me, and now I get a check every month like clockwork. Don't wait another second to see if my buddies at Done For You Real Estate can do for you what they did for me. Visit doneforyoubuck.com to see how it works. Again, every step of the process, from picking the city, the house, getting the loan set up, getting a tenant in place, and a management company to help you handle the whole thing. Just go to doneforyoubuck.com to see what my friends can do for you. That's doneforyoubuck.com to begin your real estate investment journey. We'll be right back. Rules for thee and not for me. Not sure how many times I've said that slogan of the past 18 months, but sure seems like a lot. The latest hypocritical political leader, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. She was seen at a wedding reception maskless less than 24 hours after reinstating an indoor mask mandate regardless of vaccination status. Her office said she took the mask off to eat. Right, sure. Let's bring in the reporter who broke this story, our own contributor here at the First TV and Washington Examiner commentary writer, Tiana Lowe. Tiana, what happened?
Hi, Buck. So I got a tip that Bowser was at this wedding in Adams Morgan, and I actually know that hotel pretty well. And I was able to scope out the name of the couple, and I showed up. The thing that was astounding to me was the fact that, there's probably somewhere between 150 people to 200 people, most of whom were not wearing masks, dozens of wait staff. And Bowser was in the corner, very, very visible. And I was shocked that not one person had already tweeted about it, right? It seemed like such an obvious Marie Antoinette style moment, like let them wear masks, but not me.
So,
And so obviously I got the photo and I got the footage. And then when I went up to her, when she was standing and then had put on a mask, I asked her why she was clearly sitting there for 10 minutes that I was observing, not wearing a mask. And she had her security retinue with her sort of push me aside and just refused to answer.
so just so we're clear, you were there, you broke this story, and she wasn't wearing, I mean, she was indoors without a mask on after being the mayor, who, in my mind, almost in lunatic fashion now for any of these mayors who actually do this stuff, given the actual numbers for hospitalizations, all this. And this is a photo you took. You can kind of see there in the background what's going on. So she wasn't wearing a mask and she doesn't care. I mean, this is the statement from Bowser's office. I wanted to have you react to it because you saw what actually happened. On Saturday, July 31st, Mayor Bowser officiated an outdoor rooftop wedding ceremony followed by an indoor dinner. The mayor wore a mask indoors in compliance with the mandate, and the organizers and venue staff worked to create a safe environment for the staff and its guests. Tina, sounds to me like you're saying the mayor of D.C. is lying.
Yes, and as the video that I took that we have shows, she is sitting there for, 15 seconds with no mask on, no drink in hand, no fork in hand. It's clear that she just, if she planned to officiate this wedding and attend, and then also put in the mask mandate for Saturday morning at 5 a.m., she knew that by Saturday evening, by 9 p.m., that she was going to violate her own order, which either means she's a moron or she's a liar who knows that these indoor mask mandates don't matter. Look, Mayor Bowser's probably fully vaccinated. She's the one who's pushing the mask mandate on everyone, including the vaccinated, including people with antibodies. But she knows it is garbage. She would not be sitting there without the mask if she thought it actually helped her protect herself from COVID.
We actually have the footage you took of asking her what's going on. Let's hear it.
Mayor Bowser, how long you been a Chicago fan? Mayor Bowser, what's your response to the backlash about you not wearing a mask?
Back up, guys. Back up, guys.
Those homeless people, Mayor Bowser.
Sorry, clearly not you, Tina, but another, after you broke the story, other journalists asking, no comment from her. It seems pretty clear to me that she just got caught and they're just going to pretend like it doesn't matter. Is that really where we are? I mean, wait, I'm sorry. We do have CNN offering up this defense. We can play that.
Here's the thing, right? She wasn't actually, as far as we know, violating the new rules, correct?
I think that is fair to say. I look at the photo and I see it. It seems like it could be during the toast, right? Everyone's heads are pointed in a certain direction. It seems like maybe they are listening to someone, is what it appears to me. I do wonder for a politician like Mayor Bowser if it's just better to, err on the side of being conservative when it comes to mask use.
Wow, what amazing intellectual gymnastics there from CNN, coming up with defenses that the mayor herself has not made, as far as I understand it.
Yes, and a CNN reporter was at that wedding. And then after I broke this story, posted the photo of her officiating the actual service outside to act as though the indoor part didn't happen. And so that's the thing. This is a wedding that I was not invited to, that I showed up to as in my job as a journalist to report the news. And there was an actual CNN journalist there who could have broken the story instead of me and chose not to.
That is unsurprising, but certainly worth everybody knowing, considering that CNN alleges that it commits the act of journalism at least on a semi-regular basis, although I'd argue that's really not true. Just to remind everybody, we've got Nancy Pelosi, who was maskless in a salon back in the day, earlier in the pandemic. We all remember this. And then it was a setup or something, right? Because, got to make sure Nancy's got all the different accoutrement of trying to remind people that she's not basically 80 years old and the most powerful member of Congress. And you also had Gavin Newsom, who was maskless at French Laundry after putting, there we go. Tina, I got to say, at this point, it's really not possible for people to argue that there's not a lot of hypocrisy, specifically from the people that are the most insistent on mask mandates.
Oh, of course, because here's the thing. The pajama class can outsource all of their labor to Uber Eats drivers and Postmates pickup and Instacart while sitting at home, zooming into all their cars behind a MacBook. Their lives were not made worse by the pandemic. You have people in the media openly saying they want forever masking. They want zero COVID, as a facade so they can keep all of these things. They don't want to go back into the office. You know who's freaking out the most about the mask mandates in DC? Bar owners, yoga studio owners, people whose profit margins in the best of times are already razor thin and now know their businesses could shut down. They barely survived the first time if they did at all. And that's one of the main concerns in DC. And so that's why I was so, livid as I was recording this. And I knew that I wanted to call the mayor out on it, not just to do my job, but also because these mask mandates have actual consequences outside of the ruling class. It's just the elites who don't care because they aren't actually affected by it.
Speaking of the elites, the former President Obama is planning a 500-person birthday party in Martha's Vineyard. Look, the guy's got a $12 million house. He's really very fancy. He's got Smashing Pumpkins, a kind of overrated 90s band that'll be playing. Celebrities like Clooney, and I don't know, name somebody famous. I'm sure if they're really famous, they'll probably be there. Nice house, I got to say, for the Obamas. Let me just say, nice house, just period. It's amazing. I mean, I'm actually looking at it with some degree of envy. I kind of want a $12 million beach house too in Martha's Vineyard. Anyway, point here being, I have no problem with a guy throwing a big party. It's America. But if Ron DeSantis were throwing a 500-person birthday party that would be partially indoors, I have a feeling the media would suggest that it was an act of human sacrifice from COVID.
Not only an act of human sacrifice, an experiment in human sacrifice, but also the idea would be that it's about not taking the pandemic seriously. Look, Obama and his friends probably are all fully vaccinated, and the bulk of this thing is going to be outdoors. It's not that that is wrong to have. It's that why can't the messaging be, we are now past COVID. Yes. I mean, the fact is, if we look at these rates, especially, in a place like DC, where we have had four people of the 400,000 fully vaccinated who have died of COVID. The pandemic is over. You can either choose to get the vaccine or not. And Obama shouldn't be shamed for having this party. But the fact that he has been complicit in the messaging that this thing is not over, right? That it's not about take the vaccine, get tested, whatnot. And then even today, Jen Psaki, when asked about it, she couldn't even respond with, is it fine for everyone else to host an outdoor party with their 600 closest friends? She couldn't endorse the idea because they know it is so antithetical to the messaging that they're doing right now. Yeah, messaging that, quite frankly, disincentivizes vaccine uptakes.
It's all just depends on what they want in the moment. No standards at play. Good to see you, Tina. Great work breaking this. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Buck.
At least 18 people were killed or wounded in a bloody weekend in New York City. Coming up in a moment here, Republican candidate for mayor Curtis Sliwa joins us to lay out his plans to clean up America's largest city. Right now, I want to tell you about our newest sponsor at Hold the Line, My Digital Money. People want to invest in cryptocurrencies, that's for sure, but how do you get started with it if you haven't already? Well, that's why Colin Plume, the CEO of Noble Gold, decided to create My Digital Money. It's an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with concierge-level customer service. It's one of the few U.S.-based cryptocurrency companies that will answer your phone calls and help you get started. And because your comfort and security is their absolute top priority, they offer an unparalleled military-grade security for your coins, trigger orders to help you secure opportunities for gains or limit losses without having to watch your account 24/7, a play money account so you can test the market without risking your money, and with the recent pullback of most of the major cryptocurrencies, this might be the best time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals that have your back, speak to you honestly, and treat you like a human, not just a number. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com. Curtis Sliwa, coming up. A violent weekend in New York City as a pair of masked gunmen fired 40 shots into a crowd of people in the borough of Queens. 10 people were wounded in the gang-related shooting, which police are calling a brazen and coordinated attack. In total, at least 18 were killed or wounded in 7 separate shootings throughout the Big Apple on Saturday, just the latest round of bloodshed in a historic crime wave. Curtis Sliwa is running for mayor of New York City on the Republican side. He's promising to restore law and order to the streets. Joins me now. Curtis, always good to have you.
My pleasure. You're speaking to me in the belly of the beast, right on that same block where 10 was shot, 3 Trinitario gang members. And the reason I'm here and the Guardian Angels are here is we know there's going to be a retaliatory shooting, a drive-by shooting. The police have vacated the area. You're not going to find my opponent, Eric Adams, and the mayor is too busy playing volleyball and shooting hoops to be concerned about this ongoing gang-related gun violence that's as bad as it can get.
Now, you're out there on the streets right now, and as you point out, you're right near where this most recent high-profile shooting, because of all the people that were in harm's way and were hit. How is this coming about, and what are the people in a neighborhood like the one you're currently in New York City saying about what it feels like to just be out in the streets in daylight, at night, across the board?
Well, the mayor, he talks about, did you get your 2 shots vaccine? Did you get your 1-shot vaccine? And I said, what about all the people who have been shot with lead? You're more likely to end up dying and expiring from being shot in the streets of New York City than not from having a vaccine. And in fact, people are going to have to end up wearing bulletproof vests here, not masks, bulletproof vests. That's how bad it's gotten. But today I said to all the Democratic officials, I said, why aren't we working with ICE, immigration, customs, enforcement? They have the best gang data imaginable. And these were alien immigrant gangs that have been involved in this turf battle. ICE would probably have resolved this situation. But here in New York City, it's a sanctuary city. So there's no tolerance to deal with ICE. In fact, Governor Cuomo has called ICE thugs. Not the guys who did the shooting here that you're watching, but ICE is the thugs. And my opponent, Eric Adams, has disparaged ICE, whereas I have said, wait a second, these are brave men and women out on the front line who are not only grabbing gangbangers from other countries, but pedophiles, drug dealers, bringing them to court, making sure they do their time here before being deported back to their country of origin. Why aren't we using this massive federal resource that can cut the umbilical cord between the gangs in the countries of origin, Central America, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and the United States?
Curtis, I got to ask you, this is really interesting. Obviously, not a lot of news reporting on this. Illegal alien gangs is a major driver of serious violence in New York City or any city. It's not a headline you hear. Can you just, what are these gangs? How do we know about this? And just give us a little more background on it.
Well, remember, it's not the totality of the gang violence. Most of the gang violence is still by homegrown young men, some young women, who grow up in neighborhoods where gun violence is the norm. And the prevailing attitude is that snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. So don't cooperate, don't get involved. So I've proposed that just like Rudy Giuliani broke the back of Italian organized crime, he did it with tools. They had a witness protection program so that if you came forward and you gave information, you could end up in Laramie, Wyoming. Suddenly your first name was Jose, your last name Sanchez. Now you're Ben Smith. You're behind a counter at a 7-Eleven serving Slurpees. Your family has been resettled to a better place, almost as a reward for being a cooperating witness. Or we have to spend more money for snitches, for those who actually are willing to give information. You give them money and they'll lead us to those who are responsible. Now, some of the violence here is caused by illegal aliens who are part of alien gangs. But that's not the majority of the crime. Bloods and Crips, so homeborn gang members, other subsets, homeborn gang members. And they are the domestic terrorists that have taken advantage of the police being impotent because of the defunding the police movement by our mayor and our city council. Also, the no bail provision that was passed by Cuomo in Albany that has made police reactive, not proactive. And the only way to break the back of gangs, whether they're alien gangs or they're domestic homegrown gangs, is you have to preemptively get advance of the curve before all of a sudden there are drive-bys and retaliatory shootings. And then all of a sudden anarchy prevails, especially when the sun goes down.
Curtis, I got to ask, how are the folks on the front lines from the law enforcement side, NYPD primarily, but how are they feeling about the possible change in public sentiment now toward supporting police? And are they feeling like they have at least a greater degree of backing from City Hall and the powers that be to do their jobs now, because it's become so obvious that the city has this really serious crime problem that's gotten out of control in the last 18 months?
Buck, the answer is no, 1,000 times no. The cops know that they're political fodder. I am in the district of AOC, all out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 10 people were shot. Where is AOC? All out crazy. She has not shown her face. She has not attended one community outreach. These are immigrants. Some of them illegal, some of them are undocumented. And she's the one who's always saying, I'm there for the poor, impoverished, the indigent. She is missing in action because she is the authoress. She wants to take $3 billion from the police, not the $1 billion. She wants the cops to no longer exist. She doesn't want prisons. She wants criminal gangs who she never, ever addresses in a negative way. MS-13, 18th Street, Trinitarios. She wants them considered to be, youth who have gone astray. Give them midnight basketball. Give them summer jobs, give them after school activities. Are you crazy? They're slinging drugs, making hundreds of dollars an hour. They're carrying 9 millimeters fully loaded. They get arrested and they assume I'm going to jail. And then all of a sudden they get a disappearance ticket, a desk appearance ticket, and they're remanded to the streets, not to jail. And they say, wow, this is great. This is like hitting Powerball and Lotto for gangbangers.
One more for you, Curtis. People are saying in the media that Eric Adams is a tough on crime Democrat. Guy was former law enforcement, did serve his community in that capacity. What would you do differently? I mean, what's the sales pitch that you give that makes you the better guy to turn around the crime wave in New York City than a former NYPD officer like Eric Adams?
Well, as a former NYPD officer last summer, he wasn't siding with the NYPD. He was painting Black Lives Matter to the streets of New York City with his supporter, his mentor, his Medici, the man who publicly endorsed him, Bill de Blasio. So he's 2.0 de Blasio, a guy who single-handedly has destroyed our city. He never came to the defense of the police when they were under attack, but he saw that the polls were moving in the direction of refunding the police, not defunding the police, whereas I have been consistent. For instance, if you resist arrest, Eric Adams doesn't want you arrested. If you're guilty of a quality of life violation, let's say graffiti, vandalism, trespassing, he doesn't want you arrested. Buck, how are you a law and order candidate when you're going to let these minor violations go, which, if you believe as I do in broken windows theory, quality of life, zero tolerance, the very method that Rudy Giuliani used to save our city back in 1992-93 when we averaged 2,000 murders a year, 5,000 shootings, most of them unsolved, because none of the lower level crimes were being dealt with. This is Eric Adams, who said he wants to role model himself after David Dinkins when this city was out of control. I'm role modeling after Rudy Giuliani when the city got back into control. The voters can make a decision on that one.
I remember the Dinkins era, so that is a very compelling point of distinction that you draw there, Curtis. Good luck to you. This race is not over despite what the media says, not by a long shot. We wish you all the best. We'll talk to you soon.
And Buck, I keep telling people, improve, don't move. Don't spread into other parts of America and turn those areas that are red, purple, and maybe blue. So that's why I got to win, to keep all New Yorkers here, so they don't ruin it for all of you there.
I'm more likely to stay, Curtis, if you win. So you got to carry that burden, buddy. You got to make it happen. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
I will go to CurtisLeewardForMayor.com.
There we go. All right, he went toe-to-toe with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and now he's taken on the sellouts and swamp creatures in Washington, D.C. One of the most interesting congressional candidates I've seen in a long time, Teddy Daniels, is going to join us to tell you all about what he's up to when we come back. But first, let's talk about the most important asset you own, your home. I mean, how much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Home title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes out there. In fact, Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's online title, forge your signature stating you sold your home, and take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Again, that's HomeTitleLock.com. We'll be right back with more. Hold the line. Scranton, Pennsylvania is the home of none other than President Joe Biden, and it's currently represented by Democratic Congressman Matt Cartwright. But after seeing this now viral ad, some Scranton-ites may be considering a new conservative voice to represent them in Washington. Take a look.
You know what? I'm not doing this fake, phony, elitist BS. It's not me. I don't need you, and I'm not going to let you clowns muscle me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm Teddy Daniels, and I'm running for Congress in Scranton, Pennsylvania. You know, Joe Biden's hometown. I despise swampy, sellout politicians, and that's exactly why I'm running. I'm tired of these elitist suits who have sold out our country, and something needs to be done about it.
All right, let's bring in the star of that memorable ad, Republican candidate for the 8th Congressional District in Pennsylvania, Mr. Teddy Daniels. Teddy, good to have you with us.
Sir, how you doing? I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right, man. You've clearly embraced the America First theme of Donald Trump. What's your message to the people of Pennsylvania's 8th District?
Well, I'll tell you what. Is there any other theme to embrace besides America First? You know, that's the question. So here's my message for the people in Pennsylvania, specifically in Northeast Pennsylvania. You know, the Democrat Party today is not the Democrat Party of JFK. It has been infiltrated, taken over from the inside from the communist, socialist, Marxist members. You know, there's still good Democrats out there today that love America, that love their children, that still believe in human decency and not this socialist garbage that the current left is shoving down Americans' throats. And, you know, as far as the right, you know, you either get a Democrat in Congress or a Democrat light with rhinos. And for the past 20 years in our country, the right has not only just allowed, but they've enabled this cultural shift to the left. And they haven't had a backbone, and it needs to stop.
Teddy, what do you bring in terms of background and just mission statement to this congressional race and hopefully congressional seat that you'll be winning here? What brought you to this point?
Brother, you know, I went to college on a football scholarship. As you can tell, I wasn't a gymnast or a diver or anything like that. I was a football player. I played D1 ball at West Virginia. From there, I went into law enforcement. I was a cop for 15 years. Midlife crisis, 35 years old, enlisted active duty military, went infantry. Was actually stationed in Fort Carson, Colorado. Was a business owner. Was wounded in Afghanistan. And, you know, it's when I came home, I wanted to be left alone. I wanted to be left alone with my family. I wanted to be left alone with my kids, with my cigars. I was retired, just wanted to enjoy my life. But the left kept pushing. And they kept pushing and pushing and pushing until, you know what? I got up off the couch and I thought, I'm in this fight. My youngest son, his name's Jack Daniels. He's 4 years old. And I don't want him. Yeah, my wife's awesome. She let me do it.
She is definitely awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome. I don't want him 20 years from now saying to me, Dad, how come you didn't fight for me? How come nobody stood up? You know, this is where we are now as a society, and your generation let it happen. I'm not going to let it happen. My mission statement is 2 words: America first. That's it.
Since you have, Teddy, a law enforcement background, I mean, the statistics that are being compiled these days, because we really have clear data and have run the experiment, so to speak, of the BLM movement, the Democrat Party's embrace of it, and what it's meant in cities across the country. Staggering increases in pretty much every major U.S. city. Certainly the top 10 largest by population have seen substantial increases in shootings and homicides. Somebody who actually carried a gun and a badge to try to keep their community safe. Do you think that this is a moment where we can actually shift the country back toward law and order and maybe even win over some independents and make Democrats pay a price at the polls for the embrace of anti-cop madness?
We definitely have to. And in these big cities across the country where they got rid of qualified immunity to where police officers can now be sued personally, to where police officers can now be sued personally in conducting their job is horrible. It has turned so many good cops from proactive cops to reactive cops. You know, the way to fight crime, you're proactive. You patrol the high drug areas. You patrol the high crime areas. You know, you go out and you enforce the law. I look at it as the broken window theory, and it's a theory that I've always liked to follow, which is if you take care of the little things, the big things won't be an issue. So if you have a factory with those little square pane windows and someone breaks one out, if you go back and immediately repair that window, chances are it's going to be okay. But if you don't, people are going to see that hole, they're going to pick up rocks, and they're going to knock out the rest of the windows. So it's fixing the small problems and aggressively enforcing those small problem issues to keep the big problems from happening. The left has declared war on law enforcement.
Teddy, just out of curiosity, because I'm sure you're having to do a lot of knocking on doors and speaking to folks in your district in Pennsylvania's 8th, Scranton, which perhaps for a lot of people is most famous for being the fictional home of Dunder Mifflin from The Office, right? But nonetheless, it's also Joe Biden's hometown, and probably second most well-known thing about it. When you speak to people, though, that you want to be representing, what are their top concerns, right? I mean, you have a mission statement, you have a philosophy with America First. What do they want you to fix first and foremost?
Obviously, jobs, okay? My district covers Scranton, it covers Wilkes-Barre, and it covers a couple rural counties. And, you know, it's Scranton in particular has been under Democrat rule for years and years and years. And these people don't want to continue to rely on the government. You know, we need to bring in tech jobs. We need to bring in manufacturing jobs. There are warehouses, brand new warehouses in my district that have been built that are sitting empty. Let's fill them up. Let's bring the manufacturing and tech jobs here. Let's bring them here. Make the quality of life and the standard of living for the people here so much better. Brother, you know, I don't know what you know about our district, but, you know, it's an old coal region. And, you know, when the coal stopped coming out of the ground here, you know, the quality of life for a lot of folks really went downhill. So we should have been looking for new industry to come in to really increase the quality of life of folks here, and it just hasn't happened.
Teddy, appreciate it. Good luck to you. We'll talk to you soon as the race gets closer, and hopefully as it's a successful one. Thanks for being with us.
Brother, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Coming up, regardless of vaccination status, do American students need to gear up for a year of mask wearing in classrooms? And U.S. Olympic athletes are still protesting the American flag. How patriotic. Yeah, we've got those stories and more coming up in Quick Hits. But first, everybody wants to invest in cryptocurrencies, it feels like these days. But, you know, getting started is not always that easy. That's why Colin Plume, the CEO of Noble Gold, decided to create My Digital Money. It's an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with concierge-level customer service. It's one of the few U.S.-based cryptocurrency companies that will answer your phone call and help you get started. And because your comfort and security is their absolute top priority, they offer an unparalleled military-grade security for your coins, trigger orders to help you secure opportunities for gains or limit losses without having to watch your account 24/7, a play money account so you can test the market without risking your money, and with the most recent pullback of major cryptocurrencies, this could be a really good time to get involved in these exciting technology-based investments. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals that have your back, speak to you honestly, and treat you like a human, not a number. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com. Quick hits up next. Does New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, perhaps the worst mayor in America, really think he's got a shot at being the governor of New York State? And the teachers union head hints at school closures if students don't mask up this fall. Yeah, told you this stuff's going to get ugly. Let's get into it in quick hits. Let's start with actually Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine, who, despite the fact that he is technically a Republican and a former prosecutor and somebody who you'd think might be somewhat evidence-based, is really urging kids to wear masks in the classrooms. Here's what the governor of Ohio had to say.
Tell you what we have done. We came out last week with recommendations. They are recommendations. We leave it up to the local schools, 600 and some local schools. We leave it up to them, but we have a strong recommendation that because the population in school, kids in school, most of them are unvaccinated. Obviously we can't get anybody 11 and under vaccinated yet. So most of these kids are unvaccinated, and we had great success last winter, last school year. We saw virtually no spread in the classroom when all the kids were wearing masks. So we recommend, strong recommendation to our schools that they do that. Now, some will do that, some will not, but it's clear the evidence shows that that's a way to really slow down spread in the school, and we think it's very important.
It's just not true. Where's this evidence that he speaks of? Where was the control group? Where did they have schools without masks and schools with masks and then see how it goes? This is what happens all the time. They do things and then they say, see, it worked, even though, how do they know? It doesn't matter. They want you to do it because they want you to do it. Bill de Blasio says that he may run for governor.
Ruling out running for governor next year.
Emma, I haven't ruled in or ruled out anything. I have not made any decisions about the future. As you can tell, right now, my singular focus is on beating back COVID and getting this city to a full recovery. At some point, I got to figure out what I'm doing. Obviously, I care deeply about the people of this city, and I care deeply about public service, but I have not made any decisions about the future.
I would love to see de Blasio run for governor just because I think he would lose very badly, and it would be an opportunity to check out, have kind of a referendum, if you will, on whether anyone actually thinks this guy does a good job at anything. Very few people in New York voted for him to make him the mayor. That's often forgotten about. I think it was 20% of votes cast, something like that, put this guy in the mayor's seat the first time around. It is appalling how bad he's been at his job, but he thinks he should get a promotion, if you will, to governorship. And then there's Randy Weingarten, the American Federation of Teachers, wants to mask up your kids or else.
We see the Delta variant being very transmissible. And so that's why what masks do is masks stop transmission. So universal masking is going to be very helpful to keep kids safe, to keep the unvaccinated safe, and to keep schools open.
Unvaccinated? Oh, that's right, like in New York City where you have 40% of public school teachers who are unvaccinated. But it's all Trump supporters, they tell you. Sure it is. That's it for tonight's Hold the Line. The No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly's next. Shields high.